Hey everyone, I'm Tierney. I am the VP of Sales for Europe, Middle East, and Africa here at Snowflake. Over the course of today, you're going to hear from customers and partners about their journey with the data cloud. People are using the data cloud today to break down data silos, to share data between suppliers and internally within their own industries and their own customers. And they're using data to make informed decisions on how best to go to market with their businesses. I am fortunate today to be joined by two of the world's largest companies, Allianz here in the Benelux and Emirates Airlines in the Middle East in UAE. So I'm going to hand it over to these gentlemen to introduce themselves. But Jan, let me start with you.
Hi, so I'm Jan. I have been working in the financial industry for about 20 years, mainly on IT sides, both in infrastructure and application development. The last decade, I've been working for Allianz Benelux, which is one of the operational entities within the Allianz Group covering Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. I'm based in Brussels, but we are a truly cross-border organization, which brings with it some specific challenges. The last 3 years, we have been setting up a data office as a business unit, so not part of IT, for which my contribution has been focused on architecture. So we currently have a very flat organization. And in that, I have two roles. I have a functional role, which is the head of the School of Expertise, which is about making sure we have the right skills and technologies on board to be able to cope with the changing world around us. And my business role is leading the theme of customer and broker insights and intelligence, which is actually supporting the whole organization with customer and broker data, but in particularly the sales and distribution and our marketing department.
Thanks, Jan. I've got some questions left. I'll get Naveed first, and then we'll come back. Naveed, how about you, sir?
Sure. Thanks, Ali. Nice to meet you, Jan. I'm with Emirates for last 10 years. For last few years, I've been heading the data and analytics program. And very interestingly, unlike Allianz, Jan's world, the data and analytics program we run is within our IT. Okay. We serve pretty much all functions of our business. The program is fully sponsored top-down by our president, and it is being the strategic initiative whereby we really would like to make sure that every decision is made through a data-driven decision, and it's truly a data-driven company. So it's been a fantastic journey for the last few years, and we started to use Snowflake for now about a year, and I'm looking forward to have more and more innovation with you guys.
Me too, and thank you. So let's talk about just in general, and I don't want it to sound industry buzzword, but data is the new oil. Everybody clearly thinks data is the most important thing in the world right now. Is how do we use data in the most effective manner to deliver back to our customers? So Jan, I'll start with you, and then Naveed, I'll come to you with the same question. But how, from an Allianz perspective, and specifically maybe Benelux that you're responsible for, when you think of data, and clearly you just made it into a data office as a business unit, which means you guys have found the value of data. How do you see it, going into the future? How do you see using data, and why has it become so important at a C-suite level? Why is your business so invested in data?
We're an insurance business.
Yeah.
And insurance has always been a data-driven business. Sometimes the only thing we actually produce, or we used to produce, are contracts and invoices.
Good point.
So I sometimes even jokingly say that we are more virtual than banks because they at least had banknotes and coins to handle. Right. So the core of our business is data, it's statistics and mathematics. That's what it is about. We have been using computers ever since they actually appeared on the market. So based on data, what we do is we figure out what are the risks that we are covering. And we also figure out how much money we need to put aside to pay when risks become a reality. So the more data we have, the better we can estimate the risk, the more accurate we can determine our reserves. And ultimately, that also determines the price of the premiums our customers are paying to us. So yeah, data is utterly important for an insurance business.
Yeah, it's the core. Naveed, so the same I assume applies to you. So how does Emirates use data today? And I've got to imagine data has been rather important as you guys have gotten bigger and bigger in the world. So talk to me about how Emirates is using data.
Absolutely. Data has never been relevant as it is now, especially in the post-COVID world, in the new normal. Personalized offer. I mean, we, of course, our passenger is our biggest asset here. The personalized offer, the marketability, the contactability has been a key, and the data has played a big role in it. The catering services, what we put in the plan, the optimization there has been huge when it comes to the data science and machine learning models. Fuel optimization has been fantastic. What we have been done with the years of data that we have, and be able to create machine learning models to create efficiency in there. So pretty much, I think the entire customer journey and every segment of it, now more than ever, the reliance on data is just very high, and the timely availability of data, right? I mean, when you need it at that time, that's never been so critical that we see today. So
data is clearly very important to both of your businesses. You've had other products and other things that have surfaced data to the top, that you've had data lakes and data warehouses, et cetera, et cetera. What brought you to Snowflake, besides the brilliance of the sales team? What brought you to Snowflake, and what made you start that journey and go down that path with us? And I'll start with you, Naveed, because that's where we're at. And then Jan, I'd like the same question from you as well.
Yeah, so we started our modern data analytics platform a few years back. I'm fortunate enough to kickstart earlier. And we were able to put the data lake in place, which was a one-stop shop for all the consumption. So pretty much all of our source data we were able to ingest in the data lake. And then we, as part of our cloud journey, we migrated that data lake into the cloud. Now, our real-time consumption through Elasticsearch continue through data lake, but the data warehouse, where you have a traditional still descriptive analytics dashboard reporting requirements, still there. And our existing data warehouse, I can safely call it legacy now, we're not able to cope up with it. Not having to have a segregation of compute and storage. In my mind, as long as you don't do that, it's not a cloud. So for us, it was really, we are at the juncture where our data lake was running really fast, and our data warehouse was really, really crawling. And I think that was the biggest driver for us to explore Snowflake.
Brilliant. Okay. And Jan, what about you?
Maybe a slightly different perspective, but sometimes I say, well, we are a huge international company, and for decades, these companies have had the advantage of economy of scale when it comes to computer hardware and software, and even skills. But the cloud is actually stealing that away from us, that advantage. Sometimes jokingly say that the butcher here around the corner, he can actually get a data warehouse that is more performant and scalable than what multinationals have. So it's the scalability beyond the enterprise. So as a data office, getting the hardware and the software up and running is actually not what we focus on. So we just want to be able to get access to data very quickly and to be able to get the business advantages out of it. So getting our data warehouse on the cloud as a managed service is precisely helping us out with that. It is a cloud native solution. That's something that attracted us quite quickly. And then we have done a proof of value at the beginning of the year, a combination of Warescape with Snowflake. We're using Data Vault as our data warehouse. And that actually went incredibly smoothly. And we were almost immediately convinced that Snowflake was what we actually needed. And there's also one thing that attracted our attention in particular, that is what you call the capability of handling semi-structured data.
Yeah.
So the XMLs and the JSONs. We have customer behavioral data flows from our front end that are in JSON. And that's a massive amount of data. And we need to be able to actually very quickly query that in an efficient way.
I'm going to keep going with you, Jan, right now to go into how does the business use that data? So you need to be able to query it as JSON. You've got it in Snowflake now. And then how are you surfacing that data back? And how's the business actually consuming that data back the other direction?
So when you're talking about the front end applications, for example, it is very important for us to know exactly what our customers, and our customers are actually mainly brokers, because we're working in a broker-mediated market. We want to know exactly how they navigate through all the different steps of the underwriting process, so that we can see how they actually play with data to come up with the best solution for their customers, because they have the customer sitting in front of them. And that's incredibly a source of information that helps you completely optimize the product that you in the end give to your customers.
And I have to imagine real time becomes very important when you're sitting across the desk from somebody else, being able to come up with accurate.
More and more indeed, because whenever a broker is going in a certain process, you want to be able to capture almost a signal, adapt maybe even your pricing, and in the next step already offer him a different package, for example.
Right.
The real time really becomes very important, yes.
That's amazing. Thank you. Naveed, how did you find the migration? Since you guys were on-prem and legacy, I'm assuming on-prem, but legacy, how did you find the migration experience with Snowflake?
That was one of the key, also part of our evaluation, that how quickly we can do it, because we had in the past, we tried the similar attempt of migrating from one platform to another, and that wasn't very pleasant. So one of the key evaluation criteria was how quickly we can and seamlessly we can migrate. And it was very smooth. It was very smooth and very seamless, because where we're coming from, where we're going, the functionality remains the same. The NC SQL is NC SQL,
right.
Whatever, all the functionality. So the learning curve was not that steep for us. All the tools that we were using were available there, right? So the migration was very smooth in that sense. Now I go back to the point you asked earlier around while the semi-structured data support and the support for JSON, Avro, Parquet was not part of the driver when we were evaluating. I mean, for us, the native cloud and separation of compute and storage was the main driver. But clearly the support of all the semi-structured data was huge when we integrate the Snowflake with our data lake. And for business, really, to be honest, I think business, the main success criteria for us was whatever underneath of a technology platform we choose or we move or whatever we do with it should be agnostic to the business. In fact, business should be able to see enhanced performance, whatever the technology we use, right?
Yes.
Definitely. So yeah.
As you guys went to look at your different platforms and you start doing proof of values and looking in the market, how much did multi-cloud or cloud agnostic come into play for your decision-making? Was that something that as you guys were going to market, you were thinking about?
Huge. That's the deal breaker, right? I mean, we did not move because of functionality advantage. The deal breaker was that the true cloud native separation of storage and compute. And what we are able to do with this is the integration with DevOps, our CI/CD pipelines, our ingestion pipeline, they are on steroid. We are now able to focus on business features versus before we used to take weeks and months just to do a deployment and bring up the environment, and the ingestion without automation was a huge toll. So the native cloud characteristic has been a huge benefit.
So as we go to market and you guys think about how you're going to use Snowflake, you're relatively early in your journey based on what you just said. How can you see this impacting your teams? And whether that's your internal teams from the business office, or if it's external, your teams, meaning the customers you are serving within Allianz, your end users. How do you see this long-term impacting your customers, Jan?
So one of the main, it's a little bit what Naveed was saying as well, so the separation of storage and compute. But well, we call it it's the elasticity of the cloud that was also a driver for us. So we have a long history of mergers and acquisitions. So we actually are confronted with a whole set of different backend systems that are sometimes very difficult to integrate, and particularly in live business. So for example, for IFRS reporting, we need to make sure that all that data from all those backend systems gets together in one place, modeled on a common data model. Now, as I was just saying, we're working on shared environments internally, But you start having problems when all finance departments wants to have the data in the first 2 days of the month.
Yeah.
And then you run into troubles basically on scalability and performance. So that's one part where at least internally this will help us enormously. And when we did the proof of value, the teams actually saw how much it was actually speeding up, and we started calculating. It's exactly what Naveed was saying as well. We're currently in our existing infrastructure, we sometimes have to wait for days before we have full loads of data done, because we also confronted with some of the backend systems that only can do full data dumps. They cannot do incremental data dumps.
Right.
So every huge amounts of data you have to load. And with what we tried out on Snowflake, that seems to be going very, very quick, and we likely will do several per day. So your development cycle becomes much, much faster.
Got it. So your CI/CD as well. So as you look to your future, and both of you as not as the kind of the data cloud future, and as you look to take this into the next step and just mature with Snowflake or mature in your data cloud journey, where do you see this going? So, and either of you are welcome to answer. I can pick one of the two of you. But where do you see the future of your data cloud experience, and where do you see this going for you?
As I was explaining before we started actually this conversation, I come from a scientific background. Kind of compared with, it's like a mutation that has happened. So the evolution has directed us to the cloud now, and there doesn't seem to be, I think, a way back. So it's survival of the fittest. Those who actually have a mutation go to the cloud will survive. The other ones, I think, will not survive. The only thing that I think is important, and that's more of a message towards the cloud providers, that interoperability will actually remain key. Because if you start having too much vendor lock-in, that actually might want us to turn it around. And well, the Nobel Prize was given to two ladies this week that invented CRISPR, so we can undo the mutation if necessary.
I love it. And I love the Nobel Prize. Thank you for mentioning. Naveed, what about you? Where do you see the future of the data cloud in Emirates, and where do you see taking it going forward?
So in the immediate one, you mentioned data democratization, and the data literacy is going up and up. And you find even in the business functions, there so many folks are technically savvy and wants to get their hands on it. What we are now able to do with the cloud and the latest technology, this whole self-service capability at a completely different level, right? The business wants to do their own modeling, business wants to do their own ingestion. It was never a possibility before, and now with the being in the cloud and total separation of compute and storage, now we're able to really very quickly come up with the tenant for the business and let them do the ingestion, let them create their own model and focus on the governance around it. And then, of course, because of the consumption model and the credit consumption, the recharge to the business is also very, very easy for us. So I think in the future, more and more, I think we would like the IT to be in the business of just providing the data as a service. Mm-hmm. The business really start to create their own dashboards, their own reports, through self-service capability. So that's in the near term. Now, my hope is in the future, and this is kind of a challenge to you guys, this line between data lake and data warehouse is being blurred, right? Absolutely. I mean, of course, there's always the school of thoughts, right? I hope the technology will solve the ideological issues, but I would like to see it someday, because you still have a data being reside in the data lake, and now I'm going to move the entire data set into the data warehouse. So there are companies who are looking into it, whether the model is ready yet or not. But that's something I see the future where data will be just one data, and what I do with it can easily be juggled with, right?
I love that. And I share your vision. It'll be a good one. Kind of from a customer impact, and I know Emirates here a little bit, so Naveed, you're further down the path with us and have been using us longer, so you may have a little more, data to back up the statement. But how do you see you being able, from a customer 360? So if I want to get on an Emirates airline, how is the data that you're providing, how is it changing your customer experience? So my end user experience, how are you using Snowflake to change your customer experience within Emirates?
If you look, I mean, if you're an existing customer, I hope that you would get a really personalized offer that made you jump onto one of our fantastic product. If you're a new one, you will be part of our fabulous frequent flyer program where you will get a very personalized and not annoyed offers. So we would like to, and this is all data driven. I mean, you would come to in the plan and you would see the whole entertainment system up there. That's also driven through there. We would like to bring the personalization even to the entertainment system there, where we would really ahead of time know your preference and we'll push the content which is relevant to you. So the data just plays everywhere in our journey. It's a really customer-centric business we are in.
Yes.
And data will just take this into the next level.
That's brilliant. Jan, I can assume as a customer, I'm sitting across from one of your agents who's being able to give me a real-time look at policies. So how else are you envisioning and how are you using today to make that customer 360 experience better using data that you're using in the data cloud?
We're not only using Snowflake for that, or we will not only using Snowflake for that. So if you talk about a 360-degree view of a customer, for example, we actually are heavily investing in graph technology. So that's actually, we take the data into a graph database and we visualize all the linked data. And that's how we construct the 360-degree view. So it's a little bit like what Naveed was saying. We also look at, or we would like to arrive at the moment where all your data is just centralized in a governed way, but in one specific place. And you look at the data through different lenses. So looking at it from a typical data warehouse, dashboarding, reporting is one view, but you can look at the same data from a connected view, so linked data, and then you'd actually use a graph view, or you could use other views on that. So that's a little bit the way we see it as well. So, but coming to your question, indeed, 360-degree view, we actually focus a lot on graph for that.
Got it. That makes total sense. You're talking to thousands of people who may be customers, maybe later in their journey, earlier in journey. What advice would you give as someone's contemplating the data cloud and Snowflake for data cloud? What advice would you give to someone that's maybe 1 year behind you or 2 years behind you in trying to, evaluate a solution or figure out how to bring their vision to life? Naveed, what advice would you give someone else that's starting in a journey that's maybe a couple of years behind where you are today?
I would say, look, people, process, technology in this order is still relevant. No matter what technology you bring, if you don't have a right structure, if you don't have a right governance, if you don't have a right sponsorship, if you don't have a right process, technology can do as much as it can, right? So I think I would advise, before you jump onto this journey, make sure you have a strong sponsorship from top down, make sure your strategy, the business strategy and IT strategy around data is really one and the same. You have a right organization in place. That's fundamental in our case. As I said, we've been doing data analytics for a long time. And when we started a couple of years of journey, what was different is actually the structure and the sponsorship. And that's very, very relevant. And then of course, when it comes to the technology, cloud is what will take you to the next level. I mean, without a cloud characteristic, you will continue to spend time in the work that really is not worth it. I mean, the cloud will take the automation, will give you the time to do the real business feature.
Did you, as you went through your journey, did you lean into partners in the industry? So, any big global service providers, or did you have help from partners in this process as well? Or was it mostly just you and Snowflake kind of going after it?
Yeah, mostly that. And then we have it's a pretty strong, technically savvy IT team. I mean, we have very diverse skill set available to us. So our approach has always been, because we have a very wide variety of applications that we support.
Sure.
So we have all the skills available in-house. So when it comes to the professional services, very niche, very specific advisory role we seek. But when it comes to the implementation, getting our hands into the weeds, it's all us within.
All good. Okay, thank you. Jan, what about you? What advice would you have to someone who is maybe a year behind you, a year and a half in their journey to data cloud, and how you would help them get where you are and further?
I think Naveed explained it exactly as I would do it as well, or even as how we have done it. So in our data office, we started off by putting this governance first in place, and the technology came actually after. I think having the whole structure and the sponsorship is crucial for getting your whole company on a pure data-driven pathway to the future. As I also mentioned in the beginning, for us the technology is less of importance. So let the technology be handled by the people who are actually best in it, and make sure that you can actually use the data to the best extent possible in order to deliver the best service to your customers. We partnered actually with Deloitte, who are a preferred partner in data. But we use Deloitte more of a capacity fill up. So we have also all the skill sets in-house, but you sometimes have to handle peak loads, and then we actually go to Deloitte to help us out.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, this has been a very interesting discussion. It's very helpful, I'm certain, to everybody listening. I appreciate you taking the time and telling us how you got here and why you're on the journey to the data cloud, and specifically Snowflake's data cloud. Is there anything else that you'd want to leave the audience with, or anything that you would recommend, or that I should have asked you and I didn't?
Looking forward to do this in person next year.
Oh, so much. I agree, Naveed. Thank you. And Jan, thank you as well. And I appreciate the time both of you spent with me.
You're welcome.